Hello, everyone. This is a conversation I had with David, who is my media guy. He's the one that helps me put together a lot of clips and comes up with various ideas for the content that I put together. He's super helpful. And we have a weekly touch base, or at least we try to make it weekly, where we talk about our plans, how we're thinking about the channel, what kind of content to make, and different things. And this last one was pretty unusual in the sense that we got pretty deep in talking about some of the burnout associated with making content or just working on something, and a lot of insecurities and stuff like that. And I thought it was a very helpful conversation for myself. And I think it's going to be very helpful for other people that are looking to do their own thing, to try to, figure out how to approach things differently. So I decided to make this conversation public. It's about 40 minutes long. But if you're somebody who wants to, carve their own path, create content, do your own business, whatever it may be, there might be some helpful stuff in there. And my dogs are obviously very excited for that conversation. So go ahead and take a listen if you'd like. And I hope it's helpful. I was just back in New York when we went down to our trip. We actually made a day trip to New York because where we were in Pennsylvania, it's like a 2-hour drive to New York, two and a half with traffic. It's not terrible. And I love New York, man. Like, I would never live there in a trillion years, but there's just something about that city that's just like, fuck you. It's like, fuck you. We're in New York, and everybody's just going at it. And I spent a lot of time in Queens, and actually Queens was one of the things I was reading online was that New York was like rife with a lot of crime, and it feels very unsafe, especially like in certain parts of the city. Queens, like I was hearing all these, Queens has become a hellhole, blah blah blah. But we went to Jamaica, Queens. We went to what was the other couple places where they play tennis? Flushing. And then there was one other place too I went to, but I forget. But they all felt great. They all felt just as alive as they've ever been, and the people honestly felt nicer. Usually they have like a very I want to say they're rude, but they're very much focused on where they're going.
That's New York, right? As a whole.
Yes.
Do you mean like Manhattan? It's like
it is, but like I felt more warmth this time around, and I think COVID has very much, at least in the States, I really think it has done something to the fabric of like civilization, where people, I think, when you step outside, everything's just generally a little bit more chill, and people aren't taking life maybe as serious as they once were. And maybe it was like a wake-up call from that experience. Everybody just seems more grateful, like slightly more grateful. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. And that gets lost a lot. I mean, I find myself in this trap all the freaking time because I spend so much damn time in front of my computer with this platform that I'm building. Online is not representative of what's actually happening out there. It's very different.
No.
It's very, very different. And that was very nice to be exposed to. And it helps me personally not take this like thing too seriously, because if I'm in the middle of like a thing with whatever in social media or whatever, trying to find what I'm looking at correctly, at the end of the day, you're like, but what's really important here? It's like the people that are around me outside talking to people. Yeah. That's really what's important. And it was a good reminder of that, not to get lost in that stuff. And I'm going through my own journey. I mean, you and I have talked about this thing, but I'm discovering a lot. And this trip has been so incredibly helpful in resetting my brain. I just feel like I'm in a different headspace a little bit. And I just got to keep continuing that sort of path.
I'm glad you stayed longer, because the temptation could have been to come down for the stream, but I don't know what you did the stream on, but it was fine. Like, so you can do it anywhere. You can literally do it anywhere. Yeah. So to have made that decision to stay, it's kind of like, I've tried to make decisions, and I'm like, when I look back, will I be glad of the decision I made? And like, I think that was a good one. You were like, so you stayed a bit longer with your family.
It was like almost like a forced decision to stay longer, but it came very easily. It was like, we were going to miss out seeing my father-in-law. Yeah. And then we're like, just extend it. Because the original plan was to stay an extra day in Tennessee and then do my stream from a hotel in Tennessee. But then I'm like, why don't we just extend 2 days and I'll do it so we did it from Cindy's mom's house is where we did the stream from.
Okay.
And we were going to do it from my parents, but my parents' internet was quite unreliable. So
we had our call, didn't we? Normally it's me with the internet problems and it was you.
Facts. Yeah, it was difficult to navigate. So, but yeah, no, I'm glad I did it too. And I think the other thing too is I think I need to reframe how I'm thinking about what I'm building and treat it. I really need to transition out of the mentality of it being something that's more hobby, passion than something that I'm really building. Because I think that's where I've gotten myself trapped in a little bit. Because I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling burnt out. I shouldn't be like feeling burnt out with something that I love doing. And that's just not the right mentality. The mentality needs to be, you love doing it, but sometimes you just need to take a break. And that's just life.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that wasn't registering in my head. I was very insecure about that feeling.
Yeah. I think it's like, if I had to draw a comparison, it's when I was doing like my DJing and event stuff. It'd be sometimes I would be like, oh man, I'm just shattered. Like, I was up till 3 a.m. DJing last night, and then the next day I'm at work, and then I've got to try and plan the next event. And you kind of think that thing as well, but it's kind of like, it's not, it's like the stock market. It's not just up and to the right, it's up and it's down. And as long as generally you're happy with the direction you're going, you're going to have to accept that there's going to be some ups and there's going to be some downs. And sometimes those downs are going to be longer than just like a one day. It's going to be feeling exhausting. But as long as you're sort of trending in the right direction, maybe that's like the right way to think about it. But also you've gone from this transition of like, it was a hobby thing you were just trying because you had some free time coming out of Tesla, wanted to just experiment, and then it was like you get the buzz, and it's amazing, and it's up to the right, and it's maybe like it could have been like a 9-month bull market equivalent, every day is a green day, and then it gets a bit more up and sideways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and I guess I don't know if you've had a proper think about it or not, but I guess it's a time to think, right, is this the thing I want to be doing? Or is this a stepping stone to the next thing? And then that decision can kind of like guide you. And then it's when you're having this like more down day, it could be like, well, I'm doing this because this is 100% sure the direction I want to do. And
so that's a great question. And I actually had a conversation with my really good friend Keith last night about the same exact thing. We hadn't caught up in like a month, and I was telling him about like sort of the struggle I've been having mentally, and he said, okay, so what does success look like in 5 years? I'm like, dude, I don't fucking know. That's a great question, and I hadn't asked myself that question in this context, because it's like I exited Tesla, I have freedom. Now I'm doing this thing and I find it very rewarding. It's become a legitimate source of income. I'm building a platform that I didn't know I had, that I find that I'm having a lot of fun doing. And it's like, it's at the point now where I can't just aimlessly like, trying to find myself through the darkness. I actually need to sit down and envision, okay, this is what success looks like in 5 years. And I sat down and I'm like, fuck, I don't know what it looks like. I have no idea what success looks like. And so, and then he said, so I forget where we ended up in this, but the realization I came to is that I very much enjoy what I'm doing, and I can tell that people value what I bring from I don't know if it's like education or information or providing insights or giving different takes or helping with analytics and viewing certain things in a different way. But I feel like that's my, if you want to call it a God-given ability. I think it's something that I have. And if I don't capitalize on that ability, then I'm not really fulfilling my purpose. And I'm not a religious person, but it really does connect with me in trying to find what the next 5 years looks like for me. It's like, it's really allowing me to. The reason why I left Tesla in the very first place was to find that. Like, what am I here? What am I doing here? It was like literally my first video. I get to go on the journey that the universe has given me. And it seems like the universe is saying, you're very good at breaking down information. So maybe do that, because that's what made you successful in Phillips and in Tesla. So perhaps that's why your channel and your platform has grown, is because you're able to do that. And I'm not saying I'm always right, or I even do a phenomenal job. It just seems like people enjoy it. I enjoy it. And there's a path to actually make this something that's fruitful. So why not?
And you are
right?
all
so
those
then
things.
I have to
yeah, you are. Like, you don't need to be modest about it. Like, you are good at those things. It is a natural thing you've got, and you're very driven, and you work hard to get it done. So those extra things, which aren't just natural, all comes together, and that's why you've created this crazy little thing. Big thing.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. No, and I finally clicked to me, and like with me, like the video you sent me of you, and like the other stuff you sent me, the conversations you and I have had, my conversations with my wife, my conversations with Keith last night. It's like it's finally clicking into place. Is that this is something that I feel like I'm kind of meant to do, and I shouldn't be ashamed of when I'm going through difficult patches mentally or like creatively, where I feel like I'm hitting a wall in places, or I feel like I'm striving away from it. The core principle is my purpose is to bring valuable insights into things that I can bring valuable insights for. It's that simple. So it has been Tesla for a long time. It'll probably continue to be Tesla for a long time as they change the fucking world. But that applies to really anything. And so that's me. That's who I am. And so I finally have a guiding principle. And so now, in the long term, now when I ask myself the question of what does success look like in 5 years, then it's just extrapolation of that, So extrapolate that to how can you be maximally helpful and successful doing this? And then the 5-year plan appears out of thin air. It's like, this is what it looks like. Yeah.
Is there something more specific though you can grab? Like, for me, I know, like, the reason I'm like hustling and doing what I am now is because, basically I want to do my own thing, get out of job. So, when I'm doing up till 3 a.m. on a Friday doing your thing, which I am completely happy to do, because I've got this overarching goal. This is what I want, and it's tangible and it gets me through things. Is there a more specific thing you can pull out of that and say, I'm doing all this stuff and this is the goal? Like, for example, having a similar conversation, he had like a revenue target he was trying to get to in the short or medium term so that it warranted his efforts, and like long term he wants to become like a really big podcaster. I don't think just for Tesla. So that's like his vision. That's his, the way he's focusing going forward. Maybe if you could think what is one of those, or what is a few of those, that can be almost your mission statement, and then get you through the days where it's more tricky or whatever, just as a thought process.
I really appreciate that. That's the type of, that's what I need to define, that's what I need to define. I mean, I'm very much naturally gravitating to the auto market because we've talked about this before. So and there's so much interesting stuff happening there. And I just really enjoy talking about it. I think didn't we talk about like, how MKBHD has become the gold standard for tech,
Yeah.
So could I be the gold standard for electric vehicles? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that's the same level of like thought, like that's what I have to think through, and like transportation, and all that stuff that entails in transportation. And what's crazy is like, if I think back to my childhood, I was fucking obsessed with cars. I got Gran Turismo from a video game perspective, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've had every single one of them. And I got the gold license, the super license on every single one of them. And I have a freaking, steering wheel and pedal setup. And I'm not the best racer in the world, but like I really enjoy the games. And I've always been fascinated with cars, and I just have loved cars. And of course it makes sense for me to naturally fall into this. Duh. Like, I've been fucking loving cars my whole life. It's just I'm also very receptive of the change. I'm not pigeonholing myself into I just like Porsches, I just like gas cars, I just like V8s. It's like, no, the overarching story of going into this new form of transportation and everything that entails it is like so fascinating. And it's like, yeah, so that to me is like that's what it seems like what long-term success would look like for my specific thing. But at the same time, the one thing I know about myself is that if I do the same thing for too long, I get bored.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if I should even think about that. I think what I need to do is set the goal for what I'm trying to do right now, hit the goal, and then allow the natural thing that I always go through of having an existential crisis of what's next. I explore that. And I think like if I'm retrospective in my life, in my career, and why I've been able to do the things I've been able to do, is because I've gone through that existential crisis every single time before I had that step change in my life. Every single time. Every single career move, every single thing that like changed my life for the better, there was always an existential crisis of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's next. I feel lost. I feel creatively broken. I feel like I can't bring value. I feel incredibly insecure. Every time that has happened. And months later, it's like my life is like 10x. It's like, okay. It's like, I was talking to this with my wife too. It's like, okay, yeah. So this is just part of the journey. And I think that's what it really helped me understand, is that this whole thing is part of the journey. It's to your point, it's not a straight line. You have to go through it. And this is part of that journey. That was my big takeaway.
If content creation is at the heart of that, and it sounds like it probably is, but it might not be, and that's something for you to consider, then it's kind of like, well, if we then try and imagine what is the 5 years down the road, and it's how can the stuff which you're doing 5 years down the road just be like 10x? You know, maybe we've done another crisis halfway, so we've done 2 order of magnitudes by the time we get there. What is it? And if actually what I think you would really enjoy is like a bit more freedom long term, maybe the stepping stones to the freedom is, okay, Tesla, I've completed it. You know, obviously you've not completed it. You're well known in the community. Probably at least 51% of the YouTube people that watch Tesla on YouTube probably know who you are. So we're going to say you completed it. What's the next stepping stone? And if the next stepping stone is the car market, well, then you do a bit of both and they overlap a lot. And that could maybe bring, I don't know if it's a 10x, but let's just say it could bring you half an order of magnitude to the next level, because you're tapping into the normal car market and before. Then all of a sudden you've got 2 markets of people who are interested in you. And then there might be like another little calling which comes, which is like a slight tangent from that. And then maybe, you know, you do a little one of these stepping stones in 5 years' time. You can talk about whatever you want, because you've actually brought in people from all different ages, all different interests. Right. And all these people have also grown up in the last 5 years and changed a bit in the last 5 years and have different interests. Maybe it's politics, which is super getting you going. Maybe the next election, 2028, you know, that would be 5 years away. And all that then builds, and you know, your Twitter profile will be enormous at this point in time if you keep going where you're going. And you know, not to say that YouTube won't. And then, you know, it's a content creation journey, and you've gone step, and you'll look back in 10 years and be like, wow, I was doing just Tesla videos and now I'm interviewing Joe Biden. Oh, jeez, well, Joe Biden will be here in 10 years.
If he's around. He's around. Yeah. Shout out Joe Biden.
So, yeah, I don't know, just again, as a thought exercise, because, you know, I don't know. But, you know,
I appreciate that.
Think about. Yeah.
I think, and Cindy told me the same thing too, is like, she made the comment is like, because she was talking about limiting beliefs. You know, it's like, why, like, she, and it's so hard for me to think about this, because it feels like I'm somehow not being humble, and like, I have a real big problem with, when it comes to me personally in this context, wanting to achieve incredible amounts of success and say the wealth that comes with it. I feel guilty doing that, with the knowledge of like, well, there's so many other people out there that don't have what I have. So why should I keep having more? And like that fucks with me constantly. But then I sit down and I'm like, okay, but here's the deal. There's so much more you can do. Like it's this is what I have now, and this is what I'm very happy with what I have now. But like, why am I so afraid to take on even more? Like, why can't I change even more lives than I already have? You know,
Yeah.
my wife and I are doing our own thing. We have families or whatever, but there's just so much more that can be done. And like, that's where my limiting beliefs have like, I think almost like subconsciously put a lid on this, because I'm not willing to step outside my comfort zone and say, you know what? You can't fucking do this. You can become whatever, this ginormously large platform that a lot of people would benefit from. And it would be personally beneficial as well, far beyond where you are today. And it's, that for me feels very uncomfortable and somehow like I don't deserve it. But I mean, fucking, it's my imposter syndrome. I mean, it's my life.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather see you get stinking rich than like a vast majority of other people, because I actually think in like 25 years time, if you were 100 millionaire, whatever the phrase is for that, you know, I could actually then see you being like, fuck it, I'm going to set up a charity and we're going to build a school in Haiti. Like, so, and you can only get to that stage by compounding everything on the way. Like Stephen Ryan actually talks a lot about his sort of like long-term dreams to do stuff like that. And I do believe him, you know, because he doesn't have like a flash car, and I think he lives in an apartment which looks all right in Sydney. He's not off holidaying, jet setting around the world all the time. You know, he's got a few quid in his wallet now. I believe him, you know, and he's done loads of acid, so I definitely believe him because he's been tripping balls and come up to his conclusion. And yeah, I just, you know, you've got to again go through the guilt of like having all this wealth to then do that next big thing, I think.
Yeah.
And also it's kind of like, for whatever reason, you're able to do these things. And I think a lot of it is just turning up. Like you turn up, do you know what I mean? Like you turn up week in, week out to do this thing consistently. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And because you do that, you do deserve it, and you are the right person to have it, and then you should keep doing it. And actually, not fulfilling your potential would kind of be a disservice anyway. And that's not to put pressure on you. That's to make you feel validated for what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
You know?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. It definitely doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like, it definitely doesn't feel like pressure. It just feels like, it has felt like I don't deserve it, or it's wrong. I need to get away from that mentality entirely. And this is something Cindy has been telling me, is like, dude, like, what is it with this limiting beliefs, you know? And it's weird because when it's not for me, I didn't have any limiting beliefs. When I was working for Tesla, working for Phillips, or whatever other, it was very different. It was like, I'm going to make this fucking thing insanely huge. I'm going to make it the biggest thing of all time. But then once it applies to me, it's like, oh, no, you don't. It's, I don't know. But I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
This could be a good idea for you.
What?
A good
post this whole thing on Twitter.
Yeah, post a lot. So,
not even kidding.
There's someone I listen to a lot called Alex Hormozy. Great person to listen to. Listening to him today in a video, and he was talking. He's a big wedge guy. He was talking about going to the gym with people that are warming up on your 1 rep max, because then when you're training with them, it gives you motivation. And even if you're like someone who's really well accomplished, you're then looking up to that, and you're like, they are an order of magnitude above me. I'm going to strive towards that. New lease in life. You know, you're not resting on your laurels, but I'm trying to come up with another word there. And, you know, that accelerates you again. Maybe you need to do, and you might already have access to this or not, a little networking job, and start speaking to some people who are a order of magnitude above you. And then you're going to be like, whoa, like I thought I was killing it, and I am not doing shit. Like, do you know what I mean? And this is like a positive thing. This is, then you'll be like, wow, look at this! Look what this person's doing. That's crazy. I want to do something like what this guy's doing. I've got a friend like that who's got like 4 businesses. One of them, he's got this like it's called Label It, right? And it's a little device for inside kitchens to label food as it's going out of date. I've never worked in the kitchen, but apparently you got your lettuce, you need to write on it manually per day, it's going out in 2 days time, tomatoes, meat, all that. And he's selling it as a subscription service, and each month it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. He's absolutely crushing it. And he's also had a bar before, and he's got this like virtual baseball thing he's got loads of different businesses. He's the same age as me, and I always look to him like, you're absolutely killing it, and it motivates me. I'm like, you're smashing it, you're crushing it. When I'm up till whatever, working away, I feel good for doing it because I look up to someone like him, and then other people like you or whatever, and I just think it's crazy. Maybe you need like a little bit of that in your life. Don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. And that's something that maybe I haven't had. You know, when you say it, if I think about my success at Phillips before Tesla, I was surrounded by people. I mean, I reported to the executives of the company. I reported to the CEO of the company for the last 2 or 3 years of my career there. And this is the CEO of $1 billion company. It's like, fuck, okay. And that's where I learned a lot of my chops. And then at Tesla, I was surrounded by the smartest fucking people on earth. And my boss / really good friend now, we were like, he was my partner in everything that we did. And I looked up to him for so much. I learned so much from him. And he inspired me so much to do better and learn things in addition and apply the things that I've learned. And really not have any limiting beliefs when it comes to achieving things at Tesla. But now I'm like, I don't have, it's almost like I'm missing like that guiding light, that mentor, or that person that I can be like, fuck, okay, that's possible. I didn't know that, but yeah, I like that idea. I might have to go find myself a mentor somewhere or something.
I did a what we call originals with, and we cut it up and put it on his Clips channel. And at some point in the conversation, we were talking about like people around him, whether or not he like helps them with stocks, something like that. And I was just worried now for putting this on Twitter. Maybe I cut this a little bit out. And he was basically saying that the people around him, though, aren't necessarily like go-getters. So you can like talk to them about the stocks, but then they come to you and you give them a bit back, and they come to you again, and then you give them a bit back, and then like it kind of fizzles out and it goes away. I think now online, like, you know, I'd like to consider myself go-getter. You're a go-getter, but we're all kind of like quite sparsely spread out. And like when I think about my circle of friends, you know, as much as I really do love them, they're not all necessarily go-getters. So to actually have that network is quite a hard thing to do. And you've now achieved like quite a high level of something. Like you've done top 1% sort of things in a field. So for you to have someone to look up to and to be talking with is quite difficult. You know, to find someone like that is like a 1 in a 10,000 person maybe, you know, and if you could get a few of those, that would maybe really help. And you would also have value back to them as well, for sure. So it's just finding them. I don't know. Yeah. But I think that would really help you.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, yeah, I agree with you. And I have to like, I think the big thing that I need to do is to remove anything that would prevent me from achieving that. Like, I think I'm putting like an artificial lid on that. That's not allowing that. I'm not allowing myself to receive that because I have a tendency to take on too much on my own shoulders. And I have a tendency of thinking like I have to figure this out on my own. And it's a miracle, David, that I even reached out to you to like help. Because usually I would be like, no, I got this. I can do it. But for some reason, that's something light up in the universe during that time. I'm like, you know what? This guy he reached out to me and he's like, yo, check out this clip, put it up. And I'm like, fuck, this thing's awesome. I'm like, dude, do you want to do more? And then it like flourished into something greater. But like that's rare. That's very rare for me. And so, but for some reason, in that time of my life, I just had a very open heart and a very open mind and a very like welcoming thing. I don't know what was going on during that time period. When did you reach out, David? When was this?
Feb. I think I was doing the bite-sized the back end of 2022. So we'd already just checked that you were okay for me to use your footage. And then sometime January, February, I think, I said, do you want to upload this clip to your channel? So since then.
It was like, yeah. And I'm trying to think, like, I think it's because the stock was down so much. And I was like, maybe in like a mentality of like, okay, this isn't another one of those times where you're going to have to you're going to have to take all the punches and just keep barreling forward. And I think that kind of mentality, it was like a survival mentality. And in the survival mentality, it's weird because people usually close up in a survival mentality. They're like, I need to protect as much as possible. But I learned, and this is a Tesla learning specifically, that to really survive, when you're in a survival mentality type scenario, you have to do the opposite, and you have to allow everything to come. You have to face everything, and you can't basically say no to nothing, because at that point you're just desperate to find a solution that moves you forward if you're in a survival mentality. And that maximizes your ability to exit the survival phase, the phase 10x from where you are before. And it's like, and maybe what it is talking about like setting that long-term goal and really achieving it. That survival mentality, I think, applies loosely to that, because on the path, if you're somebody like me who, once they have their mindset to something, you just want to fucking get it done and get there. And like that survival mentality kind of triggers in that respect, because I haven't had that final light, like that end goal in mind. I think that fire has been missing, you know,
the mission statement.
Yeah.
I mean this completely sincerely, and this is an amazing compliment. I feel like what I've done working for you has been an insight into what it's like working at Tesla. And that's why I've loved it. And that is honestly why I've loved it. And like, you know, and I use the example because it's fresh. That's why I was up till 3:00 in the morning doing that supercut. Like, because I feel like I have the keys to the business in, like, you know, in a really positive way. You give me so much trust. Every time we have ideas, it's a bias to a yes instead of a no, which just means there is always this creative juices flowing. Try things, whatever doesn't work, doesn't matter. You know, your thing is going to be fixed in 24 hours. We've never had to have that discussion, but it's that sort of attitude. Maybe apply everything you learned at Tesla to what you're doing now. From the mission statement to saying yes and trying things and everything in between. Opening the doors to someone. You did open the doors to me. You didn't tell me exactly what I had to do. I just sort of went away and started getting clips and working with that. I then started uploading it. I remember when you gave me access to the back of the channel, I was like really amazed by that. And then because of the way we work, I then had access to all your monetization. That was a massive trusting as well. Like, all of that is the sort of things I would imagine employees at Tesla
100%.
having that feedback to Elon.
100%. 100%. And you found that helpful. Like, has it actually, because in my head, I was like this is a meditated thing from my perspective, where I very much, when you and I started working together, you know, it was very much make sure you are working with him in the same way you would work with anyone else at Tesla. And the fact that that's very good to you. So thank you for saying that, because that if you're finding it helpful, then that makes me very happy, because that was my intention, was to pass that on to somebody. Because it's very important knowledge that very, very, very few people get to experience. I think the only places where you learn that is either Tesla or like some sort of like crazy startup job. That's not hiring 100,000 people, but it's definitely a startup. But like that sort of stuff. So I'm very happy to hear you say that, and I'm glad it's been helpful.
And one of my biggest successes with you has been that Meet Kevin clip, where I said I did the clip, Kevin confronts Elon Musk, and I was really unsure whether or not I should post that or not. But I had the feeling of the, like, if it for some and you know, that thing got like 200,000 views or something, and I saw Meet Kevin even tagged you on something to do recently, so it was actually obviously well received, and like. So that was one of the best success we had. I was unsure about it. You were locked up. You were at the event, so I couldn't talk to you about it. And I had to just, you know, I was trying to do loads of stuff at the same time. So I was like, let's go for it. Because the downside is, okay, we won't try that again.
Exactly.
I knew that you would have been happy that I was trying to do the right thing. Like, for sure. I didn't have 100%. Any doubt. And you don't necessarily always get that everywhere. So
yeah, well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, dude, ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that.
yeah. We've got it recorded.
Yes, definitely. And if this goes on Twitter or whatever, like that's a huge takeaway for me that I tried to pass on to everybody. When this only works if you trust somebody, right? So the reason why this works is because I trust you.
Yeah,
I trust you. and I appreciate that, but I didn't spend too much time trying to figure out if I trusted you. Your actions at the beginning of sending the clip and doing a great job and just being very professional, but also very innovative in the way you approached it, immediately gave me the signal that says, okay, this guy's different. Fuck yeah, let's go. So then as soon as we started talking face to face, and I saw how good you are at identifying the things that need to be highlighted and talked about, and you knew how to ask the right questions for our originals, and you knew what to talk about, and you just had a very good sense of the topic. And at that point, I'm like, okay, how do I maximize the chance of David to bring as much value that he can on that? And then once I saw that you're taking the bull by the horns and you're running with it and you're doing a great job with it, I'm like, okay, more. And that's how we're here. And I'm constantly thinking about, what else can we do? Should you and I fucking start a podcast that talks about this shit every week?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
I appreciate that. I appreciate those good words. I would love to do that. Yeah. So this is all, I think everything you've then learned from Tesla, apply it to this. So that's what we're kind of talking about here. And that will help so much, I think. So, and thank you for those kind words. So,
of course, dude. Yeah. No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Fuck yeah.
So I hope any of these conversations have sort of helped your mind space recently, because I know it's been a bit of a crazy one. So.
Big time. It's like I said, it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey, and I'm glad. I'm very, ultimately, I'm very thankful that I'm going through it, and I feel very privileged. I feel very privileged to be able to go through this journey, because most people, giant majority of people, don't have a chance to experience the hardships of going on your own. Going on your own is a luxury, and then the lessons you learn from the challenges of going on your own is a privilege. Yeah, it's a huge privilege, and I encourage everybody that's going through that to view it in that way. And that's why I always say feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable, is because that's where everything's learned. So the last few weeks for me have been very uncomfortable, but I just know there's something there. There's something there. There's a lesson there that's going to allow me to go freaking somewhere else. That's going to be even greater. So
yeah, and it's a massive difference being like the actual person at the top leading, and even being like a number two. Like I've tried loads of projects where it's been me number one, and then obviously what I'm doing with you is number two. I sometimes wonder if I'm a better number two, because I've got a bit of pressure coming down on me to then meet and help push up and then drag everything up behind, at the same time. But then actually making that jump to being the number one is a big change, like a big shift. You've got to steer everything. You've got to be the motivator. You've got to be the innovator. You've got to be the one who's ultimately protecting it, making all the cool stuff like that. And I don't know, I think you had a business. You had a business before, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
so you maybe have already had experience with it before then, but yeah, that's it's a big thing. And I think these days it's quite cool to be an entrepreneur, but I think the reality of it is very stressful.
It is very stressful. It is extremely stressful. It is, you almost have to be a sucker for pain. You have to love pain. You have to love pain. You have to love discomfort. And you have to be like, it's almost like what somebody would traditionally view as, I'm not willing to do that. Like, that's just a deal breaker. I don't think people that are generally in those positions doesn't even enter their brain. The end result is too important. Like, it doesn't matter. The end result is what's important. So with the escape room, I mean, these are tiny examples comparing it to any other large business or freaking, tech startup or people that have done much bigger things. But I think the mentality is very much transferable, is that in those situations, what's most important is to get the business to a point that is not a drag on your life, that it's healthy, that it's profitable, and that it's run by people that care about their job and they want to do a good job, and that it becomes something that fits the lifestyle you want to live, and everything else is secondary. So you do whatever it takes to get there, whatever it takes to get there. Obviously follow laws and don't be an asshole, but definitely do everything you can to get there. And that journey is the most fun part of that job, that being an entrepreneur. So like even this challenge that I'm going through now, I know that in 6 months time, I'm going to look back and I'm going to be like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. And that's what part of me is like, that's what I'm seeking. I think it's that dopamine release from reaching that point where I'm like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. And so like the pain is tied to the delayed gratification. I've heard so many people talk about delayed gratification. I think this encapsulates that feeling. And so when you're thinking about, okay, I want to be the number one, or like, I don't know if I'm ready to be number one versus number two, you don't really know unless you actually try being number one and you go through that experience and then see if it actually connects with you the way that you thought it would. Like for me, I can't imagine working for somebody else ever again. Personally, I need to be number one. I need to be at the top because that's what makes me personally the most fulfilled. But fuck, do I need help?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't view the help as like below or above. It's a thing that needs to happen. And so like even the term number one is more like I like being in the seat where the vision is being set. And then I love working with others to figure out how to fulfill that vision and empowering those people. That's what I love to do. But that's just a role, you know? If you don't have that, you don't have a successful business. But if that person doesn't exist, or if that person solely exists and you don't have the people that are there to execute it, then it also doesn't exist. So it's super harmonious and it's very much in lockstep with reaching that end goal. And that's why fucking like a Lucid, if we're going to talk about the car market, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, great. Like you have a person at the top, but I don't know if the vision's wrong or the people around are not executing properly, but that thing is a dud. You know, you can't just have something happen out of nowhere and just hope that it's successful long term. So
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Very interesting stuff. So I'm just thinking about the time for you, by the way, because I saw you had that Spaces at 9:30.
I do. Yeah, I got to jump out.
Yeah. We'll sack off originals. I've got quite a busy schedule coming up.